Morning, everyone. Welcome to the 9 a.m. public hearing of the BOCC. We'll lead with the flag salute if you want to raise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will, I'm sure Commissioner Mortensen reviewed the minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did review the minutes of the activities last week and I move to approve those minutes.
Any questions on those? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you. Consent agenda today. I'll run over it real brief. We have an extension agreement with Summit Foods. They provide food for our juvenile facility. It is raising a little bit from $2.22.5 to $2.4448. This is the last year of the extension. I think we do it for 4 years and then we send it out for bid again. So next year that'll be sent out for bid. We do have under correspondence, we have ordinance where a piece of property in Longview was annexed into Longview and is no longer in county. That was basically by home owner request. So that was done. Retirement letter to Cindi Buchanan, who spent 23 plus years with Cowlitz County, is retiring. Then we have vouchers in the amount of $6,113,025.41. Any questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve today's consent agenda as presented.
It's been moved to approve. Last chance for questions. No, okay. I would call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you. One motion item today. We also have, boy, we're probably going to be to this quick. We have Board of Health at 10 o'clock today. So. Morning, Gina.
Good morning, Gina James, Health and Human Services. We have one item on the agenda this morning. It's an amendment to the consolidated contract with the Department of Health. This amendment is doing three things. So it is adjusting language in our current Group A scope of work. The state added a couple paragraphs about sharing information with local health jurisdictions on Group A systems. So they just added that language into our current scope of work. It's also removing unspent foundational public health services funds from last fiscal year. So it's, we're sort of reconciling what they allocated, what we spent, and they're taking the funds back that were unspent. And it's also adding the new FPHS allocation for this current fiscal year. So it's doing those three things in this amendment. The foundational public health services funding, we work with the Board of County Commissioners on how we utilize those funds. And so we'll continue those conversations with the county commissioners. We can also, if the Board of Health has recommendations or priority areas that they identify through our Board of Health meetings, we can certainly figure out how that ties into with these funds. So those are the three things that this amendment is doing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Gina, this contract is an amendment that increases spending by about $148,000. Would I see that, read that somewhere?
Yeah, so what they did was let me get my exact numbers. They're taking out what was unspent from last year and they're adding what was spent from this year. So what you see is that increase is the difference in the allocation between those numbers. So that's where you see the increase of 100 and whatever it says, 141 or 181.
And how did the Board of Health recommend?
The Board of County Commissioners approves this contract.
What about the Board of Health? Do they not weigh in on it at all? Have they not yet?
With foundational public health services.
Public
funding.
health, yeah.
Yeah, no, the authorization lies with the Board of County Commissioners
Right.
to approve the contract and the funding. And if we can certainly take conversation to the Board of Health, if there's direction to do that.
Do you kind of work those in, maybe the Board of Health in on the type of stuff that wants to be spent on?
Yeah, so if there's,
So that's,
yeah, so if the Board of Health has different priority areas or recommendations, or they'd like to see more, activity in a certain health
Right.
area, we could potentially use some of this foundational public health services funding to address whatever is identified,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
And these are like quite a few of our programs with the state, they're reimbursement type things. Yeah.
They are well,
Yeah,
this one, the state sends the money twice a year, but it gets reconciled at the end, which is part of what you're seeing today is
yeah.
we
If you
have
don't
to-
use it, then
yeah.
it goes back. So
then we
it's-
send it back. Yep.
Yeah.
So Gina, the whole contract, which is a multi-year contract, is something like $3.4 million.
The whole contract, let's see, including this amendment is about $4.3 million.
And that's one of the larger contracts that the department gets from the state.
Mhm.
So I kind of go back to my old question. When do we let the health board in on it? I would think that they should be getting these now. And I understand it's a new process. We've probably not been very clear, but it seems logical. A major expenditure, those priorities are set for the next, the rest of the contract year. And our citizens on the health board are cut out of the process, which I think is putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, so you're asking about the Board of Health approving
Mhm.
this contract?
Or making a recommendation. I understand law,
Yeah.
we have to make the final decision, but I hope we eventually get the processes in where we give the Board of Health an opportunity to review, to make recommendations,
Sure.
to make suggestions.
Yeah.
But we're not asking that question yet, and yet millions of dollars is being agreed to. So at least from my perspective, I think we should refer back to the Board of Health. Can we take another week to do that? I mean, we have a health meeting this afternoon or this morning.
I don't know I think the county commissioners legally sign the contract. But we can certainly talk through what that would look like.
Yeah. I kind of see it as two different deals. We got a contract from the state and we decide whether we want to accept that contract or not. And that's kind of our decision there. And if we accept it, then those funds can be spent on different things. And to me, that'd be kind of when we ask the Board of Health, do you have things that you would want for that? So I think
Mhm.
I agree with Commissioner Weber that they need to be involved. I don't know that they need to be involved in the approval of the contract with the state, but I think their voice needs to be heard on, hey, we got these kind of areas. Can some of this funds go over there? I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it too.
Yeah, there's also a burden on the Board of Health. It's got to get its act together about a lot of things and that takes time. And in the meantime, life goes on. This is not a timetable you invented. This is a timetable pressed upon you.
Correct.
And typically until you know exactly what you should be doing, you proceed on
Mhm.
as before. So I'm in agreement with that. Other questions?
I think we got,
If I may,
Yeah.
you want him to go?
Go ahead.
So I get alarmed when there's language that says, sharing information was changed. Can you flesh that out?
Yes, so. So the language that changed in the Group A scope of work. So it says, there's this, it's just a couple sentences on page 3 of that particular scope of work. So it says data sharing, the Office of Drinking Water will share water system information and files with the local health jurisdiction to support the work identified in this statement of work. And then it talks about how to request that information.
Okay, that sounds like what they should have been doing all along, right? Okay.
I was just having that conversation with Carol.
All right. And then typically I would want to, this is maybe, we can accept the contract, but then in terms of spending there, I always want to know how we're doing, what problems do you see from the HHS side? And those are things you have to provide to the Board of Health so that we basically get a little more information on that. Maybe it doesn't need to be answered here. But it is just overall critical to anybody paying attention that we want to know what problems we're solving by the money we spend. And the answer may be very simply, we're appeasing the bureaucracy. Okay, at least most of us understand that. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just have kind of a basic question. That seems like an awful lot of money we left sitting on the table. And I'm not saying you have to spend every dime that's allotted. There needs to be a reason for that. But I think involving the very people who need to use that, are they aware that that much money was left on the table? It seems to me we could have found something constructive to use that for. You know, I don't know all the particulars, you know, but just common sense tells me that that's something we could look into or have the local entity be, you know, accountable, I guess, to a certain extent, or just involved in and explain some of that. That's all.
If I may, that there's an overriding common sense that says if you can't get value out of it, don't spend it. Now that somebody else might misspend it, that's on them, but on us is just a proper use of money. And I'm actually happy that HHS is saying, for whatever reason is, we're not spending it wantonly. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments?
Yeah. It might not be true, but my neighbors right next to me, he's one-handed and he was married to a gal, and then both of them got ran over and died. And I don't know if that's true, but we don't have any lights on at Pacific Avenue. And I got another guy that says that we don't have any lights on Third, and Arn told me, he said, that's not our thing. And I'm thinking, what? This is a commissioner's meeting, right? We should know what our money's going for and if we can put lights up, right?
Are those within the county? Is it a city?
It's city, yeah, because I live on South Pacific.
Yeah. Well, I think the city of Kessel works in that area for that type of stuff.
Yeah, and Arn said that, but
Yeah.
I just wondered, I was wondering.
Also, your comment should at this point pertain to the
Oh, I'm sorry.
contract amendment.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other comments on this particular item? I would ask for the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contract amendment with Washington State Board of Health as has been described.
Okay, we have a motion, last chance for comments.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I would move that we refer this action item to for a recommendation to our local Board of Health.
Well, I have a motion on the table we need to vote on. And then we,
Motion to refer is appropriate.
Yeah.
So have a debate or discussion on it and then proceed to
Okay.
vote on the motion to refer. Once again, as I mentioned, it seems that we're a little bit backwards. We have a locally appointed Board of Health. They've been in office for a year. We approve these contracts. There's nothing that says what our priorities are more than the budget that you approve. And when you spend the money, that's the priorities that we spend it on. So it just seems to me only appropriate that we honor those citizen volunteers who are working with us on the health board with a referral of one of the major contracts for their recommendation. It ultimately will come back to us. That's kind of the way the system is. We're all on that board also, but the state wants to hear from citizens on that. Plus, both of them are in public meetings, so we do hear from citizens in a number of different ways. But we've been struggling on that health board, when getting our act together, so to speak. And it seems to me, this is one important way to say to the health board, here are the things we want you to begin considering and have those discussions on where we should be spending the money, what we're spending it on, why we're not spending enough, all those kinds of discussions that we're having today, which is all very appropriate, but it also should happen at our health board. Otherwise, why even have a health board?
Mr. Chairman, this is not a question of honoring or dishonoring the members of the board. It is a practical issue. And one way you know it's a practical issue is because regardless, at the end of the day, this contract will be approved by the board. And the details of how the money gets spent has been discussed. It seems like the chairman and I and my colleague are all interested in making sure that Board of Health actually partakes in determining these issues. But at this point, it's kind of a moot issue, and trying to force something before it's time generally gives you a bad result. So I would speak against that motion.
any other comments? Okay, we have a motion to defer. I would call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
I would also oppose. Go back to the motion to approve. Any comments on that? I would call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Motion carries. Okay. That's the motion items we had today. Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. We'll open it up to public comments. I haven't been around the last 2 weeks. Do you guys have anything that follow up that you might want to share with the audience on anything?
I'm looking at Kelly.
The only update that I have is nominations for excellence of services due this Friday by 5 p.m. So we could get that out to the directors and the elected officials to get those in. Thank you.
I will mention right before we open up public comments is tomorrow in our 1:30 work session. We're talking again about the mental health tax. Superior Court, the drug court and juvenile will be in and we'll be chatting with them about that. If over the last, I don't know how many weeks, few weeks, we've had different departments in to kind of talk how they use that. And so tomorrow, Superior Court will be in. If you have an interest in that, 1:30, they'll be here and discuss some of that.
And I think that's on the agenda for the Board of Health, which is appropriate.
Yeah.
in keeping with what you were asking.
We'll open up to public comments.
Good morning, Commissioners. Want to make sure my microphone is on. Apparently it is. First, I want to apologize for my attire. I didn't dress myself this morning. My granddaughter did because this afternoon I'm taking 24 kids to Portland Zoo. And I wanted to be visible in case I need immediate medical aid or some such. So please, it's not in disrespect that I'm
Yeah.
dressed this way.
And we were holding that against you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of reason to hold a lot of stuff against me, this being one of them, but I just want to blame my grandkids, so sorry. Gentlemen, you recently heard a presentation by the city of Kelso regarding a new facility which the city intends to apply for funding for. CAP is involved in this, and they're going to take the lead on the search for funding. The location of this site is at Catlin and May. I'm not here as a counselor for Kelso. I'm here as a spokesperson for Sons of Norway, which I'm a proud member, and also Kelso Senior Association and the neighborhood of West Kelso. That's who I'm speaking for today, not the city of Kelso. The information that you were provided about this proposed facility, nobody opposes the function of this facility, which is low-cost housing, location of a new public library for the city of Kelso, and a community center space. What everyone objects to, and you were not made aware of, is the opposition level to the siting of this facility. I'm not sure, because I haven't been told, and I'll reference myself as a counselor, whether we're going to have 24 low-cost apartments in this facility or we're going to have 40 apartments in this low-cost facility. And we desperately need the low-cost housing. There isn't a community in the United States that doesn't need low-cost housing. But the fact of the matter is, it comes down to 49 parking spaces. As I understand it, and I've asked for clarification of this, for let's say only 20 low-cost apartment units, a public library, and a community center, there will be 49 parking spaces available. That makes no sense. The sentiment of the organizations that oppose this siting is that the public library needs to be on the east side of the river. And there's a logistical reason for that. Accessibility. If you're familiar with that area in West Kelso where this site is proposed, think about how people are going to access this facility. I'm asking you folks to take a look at what it is in terms of ramifications for West Kelso, for the organizations that are involved, parking, the citizens. It just, frankly, it concerns me that you're going to be asked to support this program without you understanding there is strong opposition in the community about the siting. On Friday, the 28th, that's this coming Friday at 10 a.m., we're having an interested parties meeting at the Kelso Civic Center, also known as the Kelso Senior Association Center. It's at 10 a.m. We're asking you not to come as BOCC, but as individuals who are interested in exploring and hearing what the opposition has to say about this facility. I'm not condemning my council or my city. I'm saying we have a strong argument to be made, and before we seek money for this facility, we need to explore alternative siting. That's going to be a nightmare. Millions were spent to realign West Main in that area down there. This thing is a monstrosity. And that's the only way I can describe it, for the disruption it's going to cause. 49 parking spaces. Please, I'm not asking anything more than come and listen to what the opposition has to say. You've heard the Kelso presentation. Gentlemen, I thank you. And I'll take
But-
questions.
Where'd you say that Friday was that again?
It's going to be at the Kelso Civic Center, better known as the Kelso Senior Association Center, on 8th Street in Kelso, 10 a.m.
Okay.
A question? Is the only citing concern based on the number of parking spaces?
Absolutely.
So there is nothing else hidden somewhere.
Absolutely not the case that, that parking alone is the issue. The other issue is that Catlin Hall, the Senior Association and the 21 organizations that utilize Catlin Hall have asked the city for a sum of money to refurbish the building. It needs new siding, it needs new roofing. It serves 21 organizations at present. And the city anticipates having a competitive facility in this new complex of 2 buildings that they want to build. It seems ridiculous to me that so many groups and organizations utilize what we have now and won't be accommodated in the new facility, that this is not taken into consideration in the planning process. Granted, I'm all for all things community, but we have an excellent facility at Catlin. It's been there for 100 years. It's meaningful. A lot of you folks know its history, what it was before. Some
So-
of you, I'm sorry.
So if I could translate your answer is, yes, it's only the spaces, but actually it's not, because we have a good building with a little extra money. We can restore it to good condition and it provides a service for a lot of people. So you don't want to see that going away in one form or another.
Thank you for clarifying my answer. Let me say this. The money that's utilized comes from ARPA. That was our tax dollars being returned to this community for use by this community. This is not a new funding program whatsoever. The money is sitting there in the bank to rehab Catlin Hall. And it's our tax dollars being returned to the community. So that's all the citizens of the community, and it's not just Kelso. Organizations from throughout the county utilize that facility, not to mention private individuals and parties and other things, okay? So we're just asking for the funds to rehab it, but we don't want a competitive.
Right. I'm a little confused because the timing, you make it sound like this is something will come before us in the future. It came before us in the past. And we all three agreed to throw in $695,000 towards that center. And I'll grant you that we don't ever get the full story ahead of time. So I will have to count on my colleagues to help me figure out what the right thing is to do going forward. But I assumed you know that we had already allocated and blessed that project.
I would also like you to know that I, as a council member, was unaware that any presentation was going to be made to this BOCC, nor did any of the organizations in opposition know that that presentation was going to happen. Gentlemen, we're not suggesting anything change other than please come and listen and understand what the argument is. That's all we ask.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Jim.
Oh,
On the other side of that same coin you opened up at the end, do other people know that you're here? Does the other side that made the presentation, do they know that you're here today?
They have been made very aware of my opposition to where the city stands. And if
Right.
they
but-
don't care to come to your meeting, that's on them. That's not on me. I don't have to notify them because I'm making a public statement as a citizen, not as a counselor. I'm making a public statement as a spokesperson for Sons of Norway, for Kelso Senior Association, and the citizens of West Kelso.
All right, I will say that your last concern that you weren't notified is a two-way street.
I'm not going to argue the point. The fact of the matter is that a presentation of such significance should have included individual organizations and groups who have expressed their in council session concerns about this facility. There was no effort made to notify those organizations.
If the gentlemen are in agreement with me, I'd like to hear how much the refurbishing costs are.
Absolutely. And I'm going to make a statement about the health department. Is Gina still in the room?
Yeah.
All right. The city of Kelso designated the council by sentiment vote, let's call it, designating $600,000 for the refurbishment of Catlin Hall. We have approximately $3.5 million in ARPA funds available to us for community use. Certainly Catlin is a community facility owned by the city of Kelso and designated for use by the citizens of Kelso and others, qualifies for that funding. We were, as a council and as individual organizations who utilize Catlin, told that the cost would be $600,000. A roof, we have estimates for $50,000, ranging from $47,000 to $50,000 for a complete roof, and $230,000 at a maximum for siding for the facility, which is needed, and an additional $100,000 potentially for dry rot and other sorts of problems. So we're not even approaching the $600,000 that people keep talking about. The second thing is, it suddenly comes up at our last council meeting, and again, as a private citizen, not as a counselor, that there was going to be an asbestos issue in Catlin. And that the potential cost to the city might be something over $1 million. In point of fact, no testing of any sort, to my knowledge, has ever been conducted there. The sentiment of the city seems to be, and again, speaking strictly as a private citizen and concerned person at that, the city seems to want to elevate the cost of rehabbing Catlin to a point where it's unacceptable. And those monies that were designated by the city be in fact put towards the new facility. We have no objection to the new facility or its purpose or anything else. Our only objection is, in point of fact, its site. So $600,000 is an overestimate in my opinion. And we've got quotes on the roof to show you. Not only that, we just honestly don't believe that there is going to be any cost in terms of substructure of that building that is going to exceed more than $50,000-$60,000. There just does not appear to be dry rot. And one other thing, we have a group out of Olympia that's going to be putting into that facility, if we can make it through council, a new heating system that will come to us cost-free, literally cost-free. It amazes me that we have this money in the bank. We have a need for the facility. Why are we reinventing the wheel here? in spending the extra money on this facility when we've got a perfectly good facility. It's actually beloved. There's a lot of history there, folks. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. But this is something you needed to be aware of.
Yeah. Well, and we appreciate this. I know a lot of what you're talking about is council decisions that they need to make, but I agree with you that it's nice to have all the information, which we don't always get. So,
Some of us elected
Right.
don't always get it.
yeah. We appreciate you coming by. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
And I just I'm a big church hopper. So, and every year, some of my churches say, well, this is how much we got, this is how it is. And, I don't know even if you guys even do that, because I'm thinking we have like a couple $1 million because you said that there's 1% out of $4.5 trillion. That's just overwhelming, you know, that's more than I can even discuss mathematically, you know. Thanks.
I
don't know.
it sounds like you're talking about budget type things, and we do look
I-
at budget stuff all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Back to Kathy that takes control of that, actually very good at it. And
Well, we have some money, don't we? We have enough to refurbish Catlin and put lights on Pacific Avenue and stuff like that, maybe? Or not?
well, we just heard that Kelso has set aside some money to refurbish Catlin. That's the Kelso project.
Yeah, maybe I could get some lights on Pacific Avenue too also because of what happened. It seems like it's like a long time ago, but still it did happen and we don't have any lights there now.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Regarding the lights on Pacific Avenue,
South
it's,
Pacific
it
Avenue.
seems to me there are some islands of unincorporated South Kelso. They're not inside the city. That would be under county jurisdiction. So depends on the address and the specific location as to whether it's within the county's jurisdiction. So we need to find that out. If you can,
Yeah.
send us a note or something where it would be. So
Yeah,
if it's right down
4
this
blocks,
street, then,
5 blocks down this way.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's in the city of Kelso. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna be an issue that they have to work out.
Oh, okay.
If
Thank
it's,
you.
if it's, if it's in unincorporated area, then yeah,
Yeah.
that's our responsibility.
And
to
I'm
manage
thinking
for
maybe
that.
we have enough money for that, don't we?
I'm sure Olympia has plenty of money that they can
Well,
spend.
I'm thinking so too, maybe, but.
Any other comments? Okay, we have Board of Health at 11. This one we can adjourn and then at 10, I'm sorry, at 10, reading the clock wrong. Thanks, Lindy. Board of Health at 10, so we will adjourn this and reconvene at 10 for Board of Health. Thank you.